Hey guys, welcome to the Unbound Gravel race recap. I'm so happy I'm finally filming this. It's been a very busy middle of the season and I was not able to get it on time, but at least it's there now. I'm very excited about it because Lifetime was gracious enough to give me all the footage from the race. So without being biased, I know that I have the best footage on the internet pretty much. You'll see the shots are amazing, and the good thing is that Lifetime had a car with the lead group for all the race, so you'll not miss any detail. Let's do it. So as usual, it was a really dark morning in Emporia. The race starts at 6, so you have to be there at around 5. They do the start that early because they want to give the chance to everyone to have as much time in the clear as possible. Most of the people that do the 200 miles, they have to finish in the dark, so starting that early, it gives us a nice sunrise and it gives us the chance to enjoy the riding in the clear as long as possible. I think it's fair to say that this year, again, outdid the other year in terms of level. We had some World Tour riders that are still in the World Tour. We had the Dutch Mafia, and we had pretty much all the usual suspects from the scene in the US, so all the mountain bikers and all the roadies that are now transformed into gravel riders. And we had some pretty good continental riders from the US. So right from the gun, I knew this race was going to be raced very aggressively. In a gravel race, I never felt that much tension in a peloton. People were really fighting for position like you normally fight for position into a high-profile race on the road. I was actually having flashback of Tour l'Avenir because it was so sketchy. People were crashing literally left and right. I was in a very weird mindset. The night before, I got to sleep very early. And normally when I wake up before that big of a gravel race, I'm kind of super hype and I don't feel really tired. So I was expecting the same, especially that I had a good night of sleep. But I was feeling so tired for almost the first 2 hours. Crash were happening and I was kind of slowly going by them, like not any stress. I was really like super relaxed out there, maybe a little bit too much, but I don't know, it kind of helped. I was not really tense in the group, and I think on that long of a ride, being that tense can for sure get some energy out of you. So I guess it played in my favor. So at about 30k into the race, you take the first left turn into what they have in Kansas. So they're not really dirt road, they're really like four-wheeler roads. So those roads make the peloton and the group really stretch out. When we took that left turn, I was in okay position, not perfect, but pretty good. And Cameron Worth from Sky, along with Pete and Keegan, really put the pace on into that sector. And that was pretty much where the first big selection happened. Nothing crazy. I think we were maybe a group of 100 in front, but people were slowly coming back. So at the end of that, we were pretty much still 200 guys. I remember that point, it was so beautiful. You could see like the sun coming up and you're just over those foothills and you're kind of surfing. And when you're in a good position, you're just flowing. You're really careful because you're watching rocks, and I mean, Unbound is all about not flatting, so you're not taking any risk. You're trying to be as smooth as possible. I mean, I was really having a good time. I was not really thinking of how much kilometers were in front of me. Following this, all of us were still putting pressure, especially because of the flatting. You really want to be in front, and it's worth to push the pace to make sure it sheds the group. So there was a hill that's kind of bumpy, so it's like flat up, flat up, flat up. And we were able to then make, I would say, the first real selection. So we were maybe a group of 70 at the front there. And that's when I was like, okay, that's good. First selection is made. The stress can go down a little bit because you don't have to fight for position as much. You know that's going to be the group pretty much for the day, and it's only gonna get smaller from there. So from there, every time it was more challenging, we would push the pace, but every time it would get flat or it was faster, people were really looking at each other. There was no pace line established. I mean, we were still, like I said, a group of about 60 or 70. So nobody wanted to pull everyone, especially that it's such a long day. So, you know, there's not really a point in burning matches for other people. So it was really chill. Maybe we were around 250 watts. Still have to keep the pressure on because the draft is not as good. And if you draft too close, it's really bad for flats. So you kind of always make sure you have a gap so you see the rocks coming, because the rocks in Emporia, I mean in Kansas, they're not like small rocks. They're sometimes you have like that big of a rock just in the middle, so you really have to choose your line carefully. So yeah, it was kind of a group that was going pretty slow, and everyone is just like trying to avoid damage. And you know that the race is not gonna play there. You know the feed zone is coming pretty soon, so no worth in taking any risk. So then you have a very short section on the road, and that section gets you into the first feed zone.
Adam! Come on, Adam! Everything's on your table, buddy. Someone yelled my name. I was sure it was you. Sorry about that. I got it. Come on, Cam. Let's go, Pete. Nice job, Pete. You don't want any more food?
We had an okay stop. I was actually not able to get out of the feed zone into the first group, so I had to chase with Ian and Alexei, I think. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But I had to chase for maybe 10 minutes or something to come back on the front group. So then I was back into the front group, and to my surprise, I was like, how the hell does this group get so small faster? We were probably just a group of 30, like not even. It was really weird. I mean, you're already 130 kilometers in, and I think people maybe took more time at the feed zone or were already very tired, or maybe were just not able to chase back. I mean, I had to chase back really hard with Ian. The guys in front were not letting the gas go at all. So yeah, I was like, oh my God, we're already just a group of 30. Like now it's the fun part begins. At this point, we really wanted to keep that group intact. So people were rotating. We had a super good group chemistry, but then at around 140 kilometers, attack started a little bit. And we had Lawrence Tendam in front with two other guys. And that's when people started to play games a little bit. So some guys were willing to work to bring it back, and some other guys were just happy to sit on. And we arrived at a very, very chunky section, and I was for sure too excited. I was feeling amazing. We were 150k in, and I was barely feeling the legs. I was on top of nutrition, and I just took a relay really too fast, so I put myself in my TT bars in the chunky section, and I really stretched that group. I think I created a selection, and then Keegan took his relay, and I feel being cocky, at least in my head. I could see that just going down the line of riders that some guys were struggling a lot, and I was not looking at where I was going. I was just looking at the guys suffering with like a little amusement. And next thing I knew, I just smashed my rear wheel and I had a puncture. I was not happy at all. I was not frustrated. I was really in a mode of like, okay, I'm gonna fix this super fast and I'm gonna come back. So I just got out of the bike, took my plug, put in the tires, put the CO2 in, and I was back on the bike just 1 minute and 30 after. It was a really fast change of flat, so I put my TT position and I was like, I'm just gonna get back. It's gonna take me 10 minutes and I'm gonna be back. And 5 minutes later, my rear wheel was low again. So I had to stop again, and I could see that because it was a sidewall, my plug had worked, but the sealant didn't do the last job it needed to do. So I had to put another plug in, and that took a little bit longer because I had to be very careful not to put the other plug inside. So I had to really put it on the side. So I had two plugs going like this in the tire. And I took my last CO2 and I was able to refill the tire with pretty good pressure. The thing is that this took me like 2 minutes 30 on Strava. So then I was 4 minutes back on the front group. And by this point, I was maybe 40th on the road because a group of 15 had passed me. So I kind of knew the race was gone for me. But I mean, I was feeling so good that I was like, I'm just going to enter TT mode. I have the TT bars. I have the new factor bike that's really fast. I mean, I was confident in my equipment. I had an aero suit and everything. So I was like, I'm just going to make the best result out of this thing. And maybe I'm going to catch them. I was still hoping, honestly, that they would play games or something. And miraculously, I would catch them. So I just got back on my bike, took the most aero position I could take. I was remembering my record breaking time at the 400 kilometers I do in Quebec. So I'm pretty confident in what pace I can maintain for 10 hours on the gravel bike with TT bars. So that's just the pace I took for 100K, and we arrive at the second feed zone.
I need the rear tire had it flat.
Okay. I just got you a new wheel, Adam.
Okay.
It's set.
Put the new wheel on?
Got you. It's set to the right PSI. You're good to go. Don't worry about it.
You want a third? Third down low? Yeah. All right.
You're ahead of Brennan, Braden, Dylan.
Yeah, I know, I catch them all.
Yeah.
All right. What can I get you before you go? Anything?
At the second feed zone, I finally had a time gap. I was now 10 minutes back, so I lost pretty much 5 minutes in 100 kilometers on the front group. So at this point, I knew the win was off the table, but I was now 20th on the road approximately. So I already catch 20 guys. And honestly, I was catching guys and I was just passing them like they were. That's the thing when you stay with the front group, you try to keep up until you like explode. And for me, I just had a steady pace. So I was passing guys super fast. But before I tell you what was my finish line result, let's focus on the front group because I know you guys want to know how the race was won. So I can tell you exactly how the group dynamic was. I'm just gonna tell you things I overheard into podcasts and after the raid chatting with the guys. So apparently Ivar did a very hard push on one of the climb, and it was there that it created a super big selection. So on top of that climb, I think they were like 6 or 7 left. So those guys battled out, but it started raining and the course got super muddy. So just that makes it super hard enough where you don't really have to do the race. And when they arrive at the finish, so the finish in Unbound, you have the last 1 kilometer is on asphalt, but there's a very good kicker. And on that kicker, Ian really put a strong attack, and if you listen to Keegan, I think he was really frustrated in not responding to that attack, so just following Ian and putting one more, he just kind of was satisfied to follow Ian. And according to him, he should have put a little bit more because that was his chance to drop Ivar. But then they arrive at the sprint, and the sprint is a very long straight line. It's about 200 or 300 meters, and Ivar was just by far the best sprinter. If you would have tell me that was the group that would arrive at the finish, I would probably tell you that Ivar would won. He really showed in gravel loco that he had a good sprint, and he's a heavier rider, so a flat sprint suits him very well. So for my case, I was finally able to cross the line in 10th place.
Was there any part where you were like feeling really solid and good?
I was feeling solid all day because it rained.
Okay.
When the rain started, it's just that I was by myself, so I was just TT mode.
Right.
But this bike is so fast, like I'm actually just 2 minutes behind Pete and Payson, so a little bit more time and I think I would have catch them. So I was not even 10 minutes back from the win. So I mean, I'm really frustrated with the result, I would say. If I can put it into a few words, I was really happy and proud of my performance, but really disappointed with the result, because in the last 170k of gravel, so that's like 240k of road, I just lost 5 minutes to the front group, and I was by myself all the time. I'm telling you, nobody gave me one relay. So that was just a confirmation for me that the preparation I had done was on point, that I was back from my concussion. So I was really proud in that sense of how I was able to come back so fast from a concussion. It was just 2 months removed from it, but I could feel, or at least be confident, that I would have been there to play my card at the sprint. I mean, all those assumptions doesn't take you anywhere, because avoiding flats is a big part of Unbound, and I felt like I honestly did a very good job this year. I was really careful, really choosing my line, really staying calm. But when I flatted, it was my fault. I was getting too excited about how good I was feeling, and by watching other riders suffer, I just ran into a rock. So that was 100% my fault. That's the beauty of Unbound. You really need the two. You need the form and you need the luck. And the luck, you control it to a point. Maybe you don't control it 100%, but you control it to at least a percentage. And I felt like I did everything to control it well, until I got a little bit too cocky. So yeah, that's the Unbound recap. I hope you like the footage. Thank you again, Lifetime, for sharing it. I'm excited for next year. We had the best weather ever this year. It was raining, it was colder. So next year I'm gonna have to do some heat preparation like I did, because most of them are in crazy heat. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that the race should be even bigger next year. Europe is really adopting gravel, and I think we'll have a lot of gravel specialists from Europe coming next year. I think what's happening now, it's that World Tour guys come, but they're not really prepared. So they have the form, but they don't have the expertise and the experience. So they flat, or they don't know how to do the feed zone. But I think if some pros from the World Tour switch into gravel and really put the same effort into gravel, the level should get up very fast. So yeah, thank you for listening. As usual, if you have some advice that you could give me in the comment to improve what I do, it's really appreciated. I really try to make every video a little bit better, and you guys' comment are super helpful, because at the end of the day, as you know, it's hard to be objective when you watch yourself, and I really care about what you guys think. So if you have some improvement, please put it in the comment. Thank you so much for listening, and as usual, take care of yourself by making the most optimal choice in every moment, and do the same to take care of the ones you love.
All right, now it's my most important job of the day. Oh, gotta get some water in it first. There we go.